Welcome you to today's webinar. As you can hopefully see from the screen, we have Tips and Tricks 2 for Carlson Software. And for those of you that have in the past attended any kind of a tips and tricks seminar or presentation, I'm hoping to get beyond that and truly show you things that you haven't seen. As you can see on the slide here, my name is Jennifer DiBona, and I do business as That CAD Girl. I'm a Carlson Software reseller, and I'm located in Raleigh, North Carolina. You can see also that I am a member of Carlson College, which means that I'm certified to consult and to train on the Carlson Civil Suite products, so Civil Survey, Hydrology, GIS, as well as Takeoff. So today's webinar is intended to be a little bit of information about a lot of things, but not too much about any one thing. And for those of you if you'd like to take a look at the control panel, so the GoToWebinar control panel, we have Butch Herder from Carlson Software. He's standing by to answer questions. You can type it in through the chat dialog box. And also, anybody's welcome to contact me after the session. If you have any questions, you've got my phone and email. I'm always happy to answer that. So what we're going to work with today is a little bit on AutoCAD, a little bit on IntelliCAD. Most of what I'm going to present is going to be available to you in either AutoCAD or IntelliCAD. There are a couple of things that are specific to AutoCAD, a couple of things that are specific to IntelliCAD, so I'll tell you about that when we get into it. So there's a lot of stuff. I'm hoping to get through everything, so I may go a little fast. But we're starting off where I'm working in AutoCAD 2008, or technically Civil 3D. But I'm starting off in the survey package. And I want to show you, if you're not familiar with it, how to create a legend pretty easily. So you can see I've got a fairly simple drawing, and what I'd like to have is a legend that shows symbols and line types and even my hatch patterns. So under the Annotate menu, and again, Annotate I believe is in every one of the Carlson products. So you can go to Draw Legend, and I'm going to create a new legend file. So this will create an LGD file, and I'm going to give it a name, so it just automatically defaults to the drawing name. So I'm going to create that new file, and it starts off blank. And the way I would like to use this is to add information from the drawing. So I'm going to pick Add from Drawing, and then I'll simply just put a window around everything, hit my right click, and you can see, and obviously again I've kept this very simple to keep it clean. But I have two symbols, DH and an IP, that will show up in the legend. You can see I have a hatch, which is the ANSI 31. I've got a center line type, a continuous line type, and a phantom line type. So I don't want to see continuous. I have so much continuous, it's really not anything I would want to put in my legend. So I'll select that and hit Remove. And then this is kind of a step that you may forget if you've made very many changes in here. Notice that you can move things up, you can move them down in the list to organize them and sort them the way you want. Any changes that you make once you get in here need to be saved. So until I hit that Save button, it doesn't actually save it to that file that I specified. So I'll pick the Draw menu, the Draw button. And this can be a little quirky, so I'll just give you that heads up. Some of the sizes that default you may have to play with and go in and draw this several times. So I'm going to start off as a 40 scale drawing, so I'm going to have a text size of 4. My symbol size I'm going to work with after I bring this into the drawing. So the symbol size of 4, I'll tell you up front, doesn't work, so I'll scale those up afterward. I have played with this and realized I want to see a hatch size of 20, and then a line size. This is a length, so I'm going to have a line of 80 feet long, or 80 units long. This is the layer it's going to go on. I'll just do this once, draw legend title, and pick OK, and you can see And I'll just hit save again, exit, and let you see what I've got. So you can see under Legend, this is just the title. I would tend to even get rid of that. I'm going to have my own heading and table format. That is what the 20 square hatch pattern looks like, my 80-foot long lines. And then you can see what I was saying a few minutes ago, that the symbols tend to come in really small, so you have to play with that. And I'm going to go to my object properties, and you can see the scale is set to 4. And I'm just going to change those to 40 to get them relative size, relative to everything else. And then it's just a matter of typing in new text. And so on. So again, just one of the handy little time savers that I think you can hopefully put to use. Also, for those of you, I know this could probably be valuable for those in engineering and in surveying. So for those in surveying, if you use and take advantage of field to finish, if you have your field to finish code files set up with a full description, so for instance, if you have a field code EIP for existing iron pipe, and you have filled out the rest of that dialog box giving it a full description of existing iron pipe, then if you added that symbol that was drawn with field to finish to this legend, it would automatically complete the text descriptions for you here in the legend. Okay, so that's item number 1. Let's look next. Again, I'm going to stay in AutoCAD. And what I just showed you with the legend works both in AutoCAD and in IntelliCAD. And I'd like to show you the layer inspector. And again, this is going to work well both in AutoCAD and in IntelliCAD. So I'm just going to close this. And open a second drawing. And I've taken the identifiers off of it, but you can see this is a pretty typical drawing, has a lot of paper space tabs. If I switch over to the model, it's just a conglomeration of mess. Very typical of what surveyors may get for stakeout purposes. If those of you have to follow landscape architects or architects, you may get something like this. Particularly construction folks that are out there are going to get a drawing that looks really messy. So what I want to show is just a kind of a technique that I've used to help clean up drawings a little bit easier. So I'm going to look at under, again, this is in all of the civil, survey, takeoff. It'll be an option in all of those. And this is the layer inspector. So with the layer inspector, if you look, I have a list here of all of the layers that are currently in this drawing. Okay, that's on the left. If we look at the rest, now I've changed some of my options that are checked from the defaults, and so I have put a check mark here into isolate. I don't believe that's a default option, and I'm also telling it to restore view on exit. Now, what does restore view on exit mean? Well, for instance, let's find a layer here, DMO-FNC. What in the world does that mean? I'm getting this drawing from somewhere else, I don't know. Well, because I have isolate checked, when I select a layer in this list, it isolates that layer, so it's showing me. Now, I'm just going to guess, based on years of looking at files like this, that DMO stands for demolition, so it looks like to me this is going to be a fence that needs to be demolished. Something else that needs to be demolished. There is text telling me what needs to be demolished. Vegetation that's to be taken out. Okay, so notice that as I select on each one of these layers, it's really nice because it isolates and shows me. Now when this isolates, the other layers have disappeared. That's why it's important that I tell it to restore view on exit, so that when I get out of this, it's going to go back to and have the same layers frozen, thawed, visible, invisible as it was when I got into this command. So how else can we use this? Let's look on down, and there are some layers in here. GDP-CNTR. Well, just looking at the layers, I've come to a realization it looks like these are going to be my proposed contours. So GDP, I believe, is grading plan. So there are the proposed contours for my grading plan. Well, I'd like to put it in here that makes something that makes sense for me, so I can actually rename. And this is, again, when I get drawings that I need to work with that I've gotten from someone else, I want to be able to get through it easier. So I'm going to put my initials at the first, and I'm going to say something logical, something that makes sense to me. And so now that layer's been renamed. Retaining wall. Instead of GDPR wall that makes sense to someone, I'm going to call it. Okay, so I can use this to, again, organize the drawing. What's it all about? It's all about saving pics, saving clicks, saving time. So all of this is meant so I don't have to sort through all of these so often. How else can we clean this up? Notice that I have a bunch of layers up here, and if I just click through them slowly one by one, they are some kind of annotation, but I'm not sure what. So instead of just leaving them in the drawing, I'm going to hold my Shift key, and that allows me to select all of them at one time. I can also rename these, and I'm going to put JD and miscellaneous annotation. Pick OK. Again, it combines them. It's gotten rid of the other layers. And then kind of lastly, I may let's go back and let's look at all of these demolition. Well, if my project, if what I'm doing on this project has nothing to do with demolition, I don't need them in my drawing. So once I select them, I can tell it to erase entities. You want to be careful with this because if you always want to make a copy of a drawing you get. That's kind of step one. But you can cancel out of this without saving, but I wouldn't trust that. So always make sure you know what you're doing here. I'm going to erase entities. Now, if you erase entities, the layers are still in the drawing, but now I have the option to purge. When there were entities drawn on those layers, I did not have the option to purge. Now I can. It's going to go through this a little bit. And now they're gone. So they've been taken totally out of the drawing. And now when I hit exit, still a messy drawing, but it's a little cleaner. And we'll go back up here and look, and you can see I didn't delete those. Oh, okay, actually, I thought that it did delete them. I would have to go in and purge those myself, but the DMO layers are gone, where I did tell it to delete and then purge. So should have taken that extra step. Okay, the next thing that I'm going to show is more of an AutoCAD, more of an IntelliCAD tip, technique. I guess it's probably more of a technique. These are things you can do in any AutoCAD, any IntelliCAD that you have. And my issue here is that I really need to get down and see these buildings. Notice that when I select it, a lot of different things get picked up. Well, all I need, let's say I'm a contractor and I just need to run through Takeoff and I need to get it to build my surface and I need to use that footprint. Well, if you've worked in Takeoff, you can use Civil for that as well. You can use Construction for that as well through SiteNet. I can't work with this block. I actually just, what I really want is a polyline around it. So yeah, I could go through every building and connect and trace these out, but with all the other garbage around it, it makes it a little bit difficult. So what I may choose to do is do an isolate command, and let's see what we get when we do an isolate. So if I select one of the buildings, isolate, so this is kind of a common problem. I didn't get what I expected. I just got some little bits and pieces, and the reason for that is that it's a block, and it's a very complex block. So this is, again, something you would get from architects because they have so much built into that footprint, much, much more than what we typically need. So I want to show you how to, again, clean up the drawing, keep it clean. I'm going to make a copy instead of doing it in place, this is kind of the trick to it. You always want to copy one of those out. So now a lot of you may be saying, well, I would just explode it. So again, as a test with this guy sitting out to the side, let's just explode it and see what we get. So if I explode, notice it's still got a lot of pieces. It's still got further blocks. So I'm going to select everything, hit an X for explode one more time. There's more. I'm going to explode it again. There's more. I'm going to explode it again. And what I'm going for is until it tells me none found. That means there's nothing to explode. It's been exploded as far down as it can. It's in its simplest components. So it doesn't look too bad, right? So you may be saying, why not just explode the buildings over here? Well, here's why. I'm going to use a key in, and I'm going to go in and tell it using my layer command at the command line. I think one of the panelists may need to mute their computer because I'm hearing a lot of I don't know if anyone else is hearing a lot of stuff in the background. Thank you. So I'm using the type in layer command, and I'm going to type an F here for freeze. Or sorry, got me out of whack. So I'm going to hit a T for thaw. Hit a star to thaw all the layers. Turn on star all the layers again. And now you're going to see why I copied this thing so far out. So once it's been exploded, what a mess we have. And look at what I would have ended up with had I exploded and then had to turn on all those layers. So this is something we really don't want to do. So I'm just going to use this button, which is reversing layers or layers previous. And let's look at the difference. Everything here is still exploded, but now if I isolate from here, once they're exploded, and then he does a search in the other string for the I am getting a lot of feedback. Someone's talking over me. I'm like, what are you doing? You know what the string is. Just type it in there. No? It works. And I don't know. Is there someone not muted? All the other places, he does it one way. In this place, he goes through all this trouble in the code. And, I could see it if it was a function, and he's passing this in, send and receive.
Muted. Okay. Hopefully everybody can hear me. I'm not sure if it looks like maybe it went away. So, anyway, once I isolate all this, then I'm able to see, again, they're still in block form, but everything is still easy to see. What I can now do is just go in with a 2D polyline, and I'm going to tell it layer 0 is fine for what I'm doing. Now it's just very easy to go around and trace around all of this. And I'm just going to do one here just so you can see. And it's the easiest one. So again, if I'm a contractor and I just need to use this in SiteNet to tell it I have 4 inches of concrete, 4 inches of stone as a base under that, with that footprint, I can now erase that block and I don't have to worry about it getting exploded, having all those gajillions of layers that I really don't need. So hopefully that's a technique that you would be able to use. Of course, we would go around, you would still have to trace out all the other buildings. If you're thinking about it, shrink wrap does not work because it's a block, and shrink wrap is only going to work with basic line work entities and points. So you would have to trace around everything, erase out the blocks that are underneath, and then of course purge the drawing and get it clean, and it would probably reduce a whole lot of layers out of your drawing. Okay, couple of little quick hits here. Let's look at working with points. So hopefully you surveyors will get something out of this one. This is one I did not even know existed until pretty recently. and there will surely be a few groans out of this. But this is an AutoCAD only feature. So I've asked, and I think it is on the to-do list for 2011. I'm not sure if it's going to make it in it, but for right now it is in AutoCAD version of 2010, and it's been here for a few releases. What I need to do is connect with a polyline or a line all of these Carlson points. So what you may typically do is do a polyline. You may do a shift right click and snap to node. And notice what happens though is if I try to snap to node, my cursor has to be right over top of that point. It doesn't allow me to be over top of the elevation, the description if it were here, or the point number. So I have to be right on top of that point. And depending on how you have your point blocks set up, that node may be just a speck on the screen, so you may not even be able to see it. So I'm going to erase that, and let's look at this setting under Carlson Settings pull down, Point Object Snap On and Off. So this is a toggle. Once you turn it on, it should be on to stay. You can see it shows up. It's not like a normal O snap. But if I get into the polyline command, again, anyway, so typing PL, getting into it this way, this is kind of what those of you out there that have come from Land Desktop or Civil 3D like I have, this is what we were more used to. So you can hover now over the point number or any other part of that point, and it'll snap to the point location. And that works as well for 3D polylines. So again, if I hover over it, it does read what the elevation of that point is for me. So I can do that with 3D as well. So just one more short, quick little tip that you may or may not have known about. And now I'm going to look at another one for compare points. So in this example, I have just points that have been brought in from a CRD file. You can see at the top that I am not associated right now with that CRD file. So I'm going to go to points as my first step, coordinate file utilities. And this is an existing CRD file. So this is it. You can see that this point, this coordinate file has 463, well, I don't know that. I don't know that it has 463 points, but I know that the lowest point number is 1 and the highest is 463. So I'll pick OK, or pick it open. And have got that set. And I guess one thing I also wanted to mention is actually, let's just look at that real quick. And I'm going to do a list points. And you can just see them in here. So I know I've got some gaps in some of the point numbers. But 1 to 463. Now, I think everybody that's been working with any kind of any civil survey program understands that there can get to be a disconnect between the points that are in your drawing and the points that are in a CRD file or a point database that it's associated to. And it's very important to keep consistency between the drawing and the CRD file, but we know that sometimes that gets kind of out of whack. So for those of you that may not know, you can go to points and coordinate file utilities. And there are two very important buttons here at the bottom. So if you know for a fact that maybe you accidentally erased a couple of points in your drawing and you've gone on and you've done some work and then you go back and then you realize that they're gone, it's not a matter of just doing a simple undo to bring them back to the drawing. What you may want to do in that case is do an update drawing from CRD file. And so what that will do is check the CRD file that you're associated with and make any updates. And then vice versa, if you know for a fact that you've got your drawing that's right, but the CRD file has gotten funky somehow and you know there are problems with the CRD file, you can also
update the CRD file from the drawing. So what we're looking at here is, all right, I know how to fix it if I understand there's a problem, but what if I don't know that there's a problem? That's where, under Point Utilities, the Compare Points command will come in handy. And I think I'd forgotten to mention, this is good for both AutoCAD and IntelliCAD. So what you are always, it's not very apparent here in this dialog. I would probably recommend that Carlson make a note of that somewhere in this dialog box, because it helps to understand that what you are always comparing against is your current CRD file. So this gives you 3 different ways to compare points against your current CRD file. So here, for the first option of drawing, we would be comparing the points in the drawing versus the current CRD file. And again, this is where it gets a little confusing, or it seems to be. It's giving me an option here to compare the current coordinate file against the current coordinate file. Well, that's maybe 2 different ranges of points inside the same CRD file. Okay? And then the third one is a little more obvious. You would compare another coordinate file to the current one. So your output options, it's going to give you a report, because I have a check mark here. It's going to give you a report. It'll either tell me the bearing and distance difference between corresponding points, give me a delta X, delta Y, or break it down to northings and eastings, basically give me a north-south or an east-west difference. I can set up a tolerance. Now this, if you're truly doing surveying and you truly need to find this information out, 1 foot is probably not tight enough, but we'll leave it. This is the default. And then if you're checking for Z and checking the elevation of points, you can set that vertical tolerance differently if you need to. So let's just do current drawing, and we're comparing the current drawing against the CRD file that we're attached to. So I'll pick OK. And I'm just going to put a window around all those points. And as I had hoped, no difference is greater than the tolerance. Okay? So let's close that and let's make a change. So here I'm just going to do an AutoCAD move. And this is a no, not just a no. So I'm actually going to pick these up and do an AutoCAD move. So that moved the points in the drawing, but it left my CRD file where they were, which is a bad thing, unless we're trying to show this as an example. So I'm going to go through the same exact thing, and you'll just see what the reporting looks like. So I'll go to now to compare points. And same options. Put a window around this. And let me just separate this out a little bit. You can tell that point number 315 in the drawing has coordinates here, and the CRD file has coordinates here, and here is the delta Y and the delta X. So this is the kind of report it gives you. So I think this is very handy if you end up getting your point files messed up. Not that we would do that ourselves. It's always somebody else that has messed things up for us. So not saving changes. Now let's go back in and let's look at the same or a different option in the same command and just see what we can, how it comes out. We're going to compare 2 different ranges of points, and I'll just tell you they have no relationship. This is just for demonstration. So the current coordinate file, if we pick OK, it prompts us for 2 different ranges of points. So I'm just going to be very generic and compare points 1 to 5 to 6 to 10. And you can see how that sorts it out for us. So it has compared point number 1 to point number 6 and tells us the delta X and the delta Y and the delta Z. Okay. So again, a little bit of information for you. And then lastly, I'll go right back in and we're going to do the third option, which is comparing another CRD file. And what I've done is I've just got the same thing, it's just modified. So this is actually a good example. You can see here, if I select this one, it tells me the point range is 1 to 463, and the size is 30,662. And here, point range is the same, so is the size. So it may give you the impression, maybe a false impression, that they're the same file. But if we were to look at the times and the date stamps, they are different. So if I pick open and compare this to the modified CRD file, now this compare points is used for a lot of other commands, or maybe not a lot of other, but several other commands in Carlson. So report missing points from design and report missing points from survey, those actually refer to options that are set up in cut sheets. So they don't apply here, but in order to see the missing points, you do have to have one of these two selected. So we'll just pick OK. And you can see, in this case, I didn't have anything that had moved. Otherwise, it would tell me the delta Y, delta X, and delta Z. But it has told me that I have 4 points that are missing from CRD file 2. And it is nice enough up here at the top to tell you the 2 different CRD files that you've compared. So again, I think this is kind of handy. Save you a little bit of time checking information. Make sure everything's right before it gets sent out. All right, so we'll probably come back to AutoCAD, but by and large, I think I'm going to move over to IntelliCAD for at least the next couple of demonstration files. So let's move over to here. The drawing inspector is the thing that I'd like to show you here. So let's look at, let's see, actually it doesn't matter which file I go into here. So let's just pick up one of these that I'd worked on earlier. And it's not, I'll go ahead and give you the heads up on this, it's not that this command does not, is not available in both AutoCAD and IntelliCAD, but I will tell you that I found a bug in the AutoCAD version of this morning, so it's been reported to Carlson, so that's why I'm showing you this here in IntelliCAD. But if anyone is familiar at all with Carlson, even just seeing a demo, whether it's online or in person, you've probably seen someone show you the drawing inspector. It's a very handy little command that tells you information about entities. So new to 2010, we can actually select more than one option. In earlier versions, you could only pick one to display at a time. But here we can show, as you can see, multiple bits of information. So I'm showing the layer and the elevation. What you may not know is that, I don't know if everybody's like me, but to me it gets annoying having that little tooltip come up every time as I hover over things and move my mouse across it. So I usually turn it on, use it for what I need, and turn it off. But if you like having it there, what you may choose to do is uncheck one option, which is Enable Tag Display. So I'm going to uncheck that. And notice that it doesn't come up. So that's really no good to anyone right now. But we'll go back in and tell it to show the data on the status bar. So now, this is going to be kind of tricky. What you need to do is look down here. So look where my mouse is circling. So right now, all that information that typically shows up in Drawing Inspector, instead of showing up at my cursor, it's showing up in the status bar. And so if I need to see, I don't know, what else? Entity type. So it's telling us that this is on layer P lot number, has an elevation of 0, and the entity is a lightweight polyline. Here it's going to be a block, it's a hatch, I guess. So that may be preferable. Like I said, there are some issues in the AutoCAD version, so I'm sure there'll be a patch coming out before too long to fix that. But just another way for you to maybe take advantage of using Drawing Inspector. I'll right-click and still I'll turn that off. And then this next option, let's look at, or this next little feature, is the IntelliCAD Explorer. So you can bet that this one does not exist in AutoCAD, but AutoCAD has its own little version. So let's actually open up two different drawings here. So it's taking a minute. Okay, so I have two different drawings open. Actually, I'll just close this one. All right, so I have two different drawings open. If I look at drawing number one, you can see that I have really just not too many layers in this. And then I have another drawing that has all those layers that we were trying to get rid of earlier. So let's say that I'm working here in this drawing that maybe has been purged or just does not have all the layers that I need in it. And I need to put back into it maybe some of my standard layers. I'd like to hold my line types. I'd like to hold my colors. So what I can do is actually pull layers from one drawing to another. So you can see here my drawing number one. Here are all the layers in it. Here's the other drawing that I have open, and here are all the layers in it. And this is the difference. I said I'm going to go back and show you how it works in AutoCAD, in the AutoCAD version of this. But the one real difference is that in IntelliCAD, the drawing you're copying from, layers from, and the drawing you're copying layers to both need to be open. And that's not the case in the AutoCAD version. So here, let's look at the layers, and you can see that they're set up here. And I'm just going to pretty arbitrarily hold my Shift key and just select a bunch of layers. And you can see I've got multiple colors set up. And I'm going to right-click and copy those. I'll pick on layers in the drawing I'd like to bring those into. And right here I can paste. And that's pretty slick because now, again, I've been able to maintain what would be my standard layers, standard colors. Didn't bring all the entities that go with it. It just simply populated this drawing with those layers. Okay, so now how would we do it in AutoCAD? I'm probably going to have to get out of these two drawings because they'll be read-only otherwise. And switch over to AutoCAD. And I'll just select on both of these, and we'll just kind of go through the same thing. The command in AutoCAD that does this same thing is called AutoCAD Design Center. So I just did something I told you I didn't need to do. So this drawing does not need to be open. Only the drawing that I want to create the new layers in needs to be open. So there's a button here called Design Center. To type it in at the command line, if you can't find the icon, it's ADC, so AutoCAD Design Center. And I get a tree, and all I have to do is just kind of drill down, find the folder, find the file, so find the DWG file that I want to copy the layers from. And this is just a drag and drop. So I can expand this list, and let's say it's all of the grading plan layers that I'd like to bring into this new one. So I'm going to select them and drag, and you can see my little cursor that it just lets me drop it, and it tells me that layers were added. Any duplicate definitions will be ignored. So if there's a conflict between colors and line types, it'll ignore those and maintain the ones that are currently in the drawing. And you can see all of those layers have now been created here in this drawing. So exactly what I needed. Okay, a couple extra ones here. And let's see. Both of these are going to work equally well in AutoCAD or IntelliCAD. So we'll just do it here in IntelliCAD. And I've got a very simple little survey with topo points. I've used field to finish to process my points, bring in a few symbols, and also to draw in my break lines. So I just need a surface from this. So you'll see here what I'm getting ready to show you is in civil, it's in takeoff, and it's in construction. It is not in survey. Sorry, well, let's scratch that. I've got to build the surface first. That's in everything. So under surface, I'm going to triangulate and contour. And I just need kind of a quick and dirty set of contours here. So I'm not even going to write a triangulation file. I will draw contours. Not going to label. And I'm going to have it use all my points and polylines. Okay, at the command line, select inclusion perimeter. I don't have one. I don't have an exclusion. And I'm going to window. Now notice that I'm putting a window around all these points. And I'm going to hit my enter key. Notice that my surface is confined to here, even though these have elevation. All right, I did not use a boundary. I didn't create a shrink wrap. For those of you that aren't familiar with it, what I've done is told it any of my property corners with a description EIP, I did this through Field to Finish, are to be considered non-surface points. So it ignores them, anything I do with regards to a surface. So no real smoke and mirrors, nothing beyond that was set up. So the example I'm going to show, and again, this is a really bad practice. I'm always going to suggest that if you have this problem, you really need to fix the underlying problems. So you may have a point or a shot that was wrong. You may need break lines. But in a crunch, this is how you may fix a contour. And again, what we are doing is fixing a contour, not the surface underlying it. So very, very important. This is the part coming up that is in civil only. This is not in, or civil and takeoff and construction. It is not in survey. But let's say that I was out and I was the one that surveyed this, and I know for a fact that there's really not a little draw here, a little high point or whatever, a little ridge. And so rather than take the time to go ahead and fix what's underlying this, I want to fix that contour, and I just kind of want to shave that off, but I want to do it easily. So we have a command under surface to modify contours and then edit contours. And it prompts me to select the contour to edit. So now if I want to come and kind of chop that little divot off, when I select the contour to edit, I don't want to pick over here. I want to pick kind of where I want to start fixing this contour. So I'm going to pick a point here. And now I just pick intermediate points. And I can pick as few or as many as I want. And I'm going to hit my enter key to tell it I'm finished. And it asks me where I'm reconnecting. So I'll do a shift right mouse, go to endpoint, and you can see that not only has it trimmed it out, but it's put it all back together, it's put it on the right layer, and so on. So for those of you that don't build, this may be really good for those of you that do not build your proposed surfaces, or don't build a proposed surface, you just end up going in and drawing in your own contours, your proposed surface contours. If that's the case, I mean, this can really be helpful, save you a lot of time. So again, let's just be a little more creative, and I'm just going to pick here, and let's say that I know there's a draw there, but it's a lot more mild and gentle, and I'll just snap back in here and clean that up. Makes it very nice, very easy, saves a lot of time. All right, and then one more little handy command is I've just got a very simple back of curb, edge of pavement set of polylines here, and they are polylines, so you can see that if I select them. But what I'd like to do is, let's say you're trying to make a sidewalk, or I'm horrible at coming up with good examples of why you would want to do this, but I know that in production it comes up actually a lot. So let's say what I'd like to do is I need to make a copy of this polyline. but I just want a piece of the polyline. So it's not just as simple as making a copy of the entire polyline. What I'd like to do is just kind of have a trace of this polyline with all its nooks and crannies, maybe just over to here. So Carlson's got a really cool command that will allow me to do that. So all you've got to do is start with, or it's not a command, it's an option inside of a command. Again, this is good in AutoCAD or in IntelliCAD and in all of the Carlson products. So I'll pick Polyline 2D options. And notice here that I have a follow option. So I'm going to type an F to tell it to follow a polyline. It prompts me to select the polyline to follow, so I'm just going to pick this one. And now it asks me to pick the first follow point. So I'm going to do Shift right mouse and maybe snap to this endpoint. If this were 3D polylines, it would also interpolate elevations. It's not, so I'm just going to say no to this option. And then last follow point. And I think I said I wanted to go over to here. And you can see just really that quickly it connected all of that for me. Now, what if I actually want to skip over to here without going around here? I just do another follow, so I can pick up on the same polyline or a different one. Actually, let's get a little creative. So I'm going to select this polyline, so I'll do the inside or the edge of pavement. And I can just jump right on over to that one and tell it I want it to follow maybe to here. And so it's really just that easy to get it to trace those out for you. So just then drafting this saves an enormous amount of time. Now what if you have a closed polyline? This presents a little different scenario. So what I'd like to do here is maybe start a polyline here and go all the way around over to here. So how's that going to work? So start the 2D polyline command again, and F for follow. Pick the polyline to follow. It's going to be this one. First polyline point, same thing. And actually, let's say I want it to go over to here. So I'll just snap to that endpoint. Oops, I already done it. And look what it's highlighting. So because this is a closed polyline, it assumed the shortest distance. But it's asking me at my command line, is this correct? So I want to say no, it's not correct because I need it to actually go the long way. So I'm going to say a no to this. And that's exactly what I want. So I'm going to say yes and hit enter and finish. So that's the polyline that I ended up wanting. It saved me a whole lot of time. Again, it's better than exploding it, erasing the pieces, p-editing it back together. You know, there are a lot of other ways that you could have gone about that. So I think that's a lot faster. Hopefully it would save you a little bit of time as well. And so that's basically it. That's what I had prepared for today. So I'll just go back to this screen. You can see my phone number and email once again if, in case you have any questions. I would like to obviously thank you for coming, but also I want to mention that shortly after this ends, you will receive just a follow-up questionnaire through GoToMeeting. And I'm not sure if the question's on there or not, but if you have a place to provide a little bit of feedback, we'd really like to hear what other topics you'd like to see in some of the webinars. Just any kind of feedback you can give us to those ends. So appreciate your time.
Jennifer, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I was going to ask you a few questions that popped
up.
up.
Yep, absolutely.
They were wondering if they could create the legend the same way in paper space.
Yes, you can. You just have some scaling issues, or the same kind of scaling issues you would otherwise.
And the other was, what was the bug again that was in the CAD, not in iCAD, but was in AutoCAD for drawings?
Oh, I guess I got to show it. All right. No problem. I'll show you what happens. Let's see. So if we go to Drawing Inspector, and actually you can see it right now.
Okay.
Let's see. Let me go back to as originally done. So if it's working as normal, you can see that it works like that. But if I turn off the tag display and show the data, look at what happens in the bottom left. The two different issues that we've identified, for whatever reason, it keeps showing the 100%.
Okay.
And then it also only shows one of the items here, so it doesn't show all of the ones that you have selected.
Okay.
Yeah, and so what you'll notice is, let's see, trying to think. You could do something that it would actually come back for a half a second, but anyway, they know about it, and we're trying to get that fixed.
Thanks, Jennifer. That was the two that came up that we didn't get answered.
All right, no more questions. So hopefully everybody got a lot out of it. And again, please feel free to follow up with any questions that you have. And thanks for attending.